is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsey Elizabeth Cortes, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Hello, fans and listeners. It's Lindsey Elizabeth Cortes, registered dietitian, sports dietitian, and your host of the podcast. Our guest today is Kriss Hendy. He has been working within the endurance community for over 15 years, studying, coaching, including supporting his wife, who is an elite level athlete. And now he helps other coaches and athletes within a mentoring and consulting capacity. He is the owner of Strength for Endurance, whose multidisciplinary approach ensures athletes are employing a comprehensive approach to their endurance training in order to overcome injury, prevent overtraining, and keep doing what they love for many years to come. When it comes to preparing for an endurance race or adventure, the training sessions are the easy part. But what's rarely considered is how this individual is going to integrate a high-volume training program into an already demanding work and family lifestyle. I feel that a lot personally right now. So when someone is placing so much demand on their physical body, factors such as blood work, hormones, adequate fueling, training load management, psychology, and having a fundamental level of strength and conditioning are essential. For many years of professional and personal experience, Kriss is passionate about raising the standard of coaching and education to the endurance community and is hosting the Endurance Speaker Series in the UK over the next coming months. You can find more information about Kriss and Strength for Endurance at strengthforendurance.com or follow at Strength for Endurance on social media networks. And for tickets to the speaker series, which we will be talking about in today's episode, you can head to Eventbrite, and the link in the show notes will have the link to get your tickets to the upcoming UK speakers series. So Kriss, thank you so much for joining us today and having this conversation.
Thank you, Lindsey. That was one of the most comprehensive introductions I think I've ever experienced. So that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, you have many, many years of experience, and you're the host of your own podcast as well. I've tuned into a couple episodes, so just a wealth of knowledge. I want to get to the foundation of your work and the title of your business, Strength for Endurance. I feel like most endurance athletes hate hearing the word strength training and being told to do that. At least that's what, there's a resistance to it because they love training for endurance, and the strength feels like, oh, this is something I have to do. Share a bit about why this is so important for you to encourage endurance athletes to embrace, strength training and injury prevention, all the things.
I'm going to sum it up very quickly and say it keeps you doing what you love. I have always worked with people that just, my wife included, myself included, want to run, ride, swim, play. We've got children that we want to play with on a daily basis. And those expectations, you need to make sure you've got a relatively healthy, strong body to do so. If you rewind 15 years, I'm a strength conditioning coach, I've done my sports science degree. I was trying to work out if I wanted to be a physio, a strength coach, a teacher. I was kind of dabbling with all of it. And it was my wife who was like, we moved to Australia. We lived in Australia. Polly was training full time, surrounded by endurance-based people, ultra running, swimming, multi-sport, all of it. And it was just unbelievably evident that the community I was in had no idea about how to maintain their bodies, especially from coming back from an injury or transitioning into different sports, like different disciplines, and actually then potentially how to leverage more out of their body, if they wanted to be a better swimmer. Okay, well, they need to develop some better upper body strength, better core strength, power on the bike. Okay, like lower body strength, power on the glutes, hamstrings. There was that missing link. And right at the beginning, it was a hard sell. I was going to events with my wife and exhibiting and championing strength and conditioning for endurance performance, and brick wall after brick wall after brick wall, where people they just were used to just doing high volume and doing what they wanted to do, but yet breaking down and finding themselves with these niggly injuries or on the sidelines. And so we could go into detail, but essentially the business evolved very quickly into the niche that I'm unbelievably passionate about, because I was surrounded by it for so long, navigating so many injuries myself and my clients and probably my wife. But yeah, so we're now at a place where we look after a lot of men and women, young and old, from all different kind of endurance sports around the world. And we integrate strength conditioning into run, bike, swim, multi-sport programming on a daily basis. So, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Even if you have the passion for the endurance sports, it's like doing the strength training is what allows you to continue that passion. I think that injury prevention is a huge piece of it. But I did go on your website and I read a wonderful blog that reminded me that strength training is more than just injury prevention. There are a few other reasons, like, improving your form. So, that's another aspect. I wonder if you wanted to talk about, just not just injury prevention, but how strength training can improve form or economy, increase speed and power.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do we want the most? We want to be able to potentially be able to be running as well at the end of a run as you are at the beginning of a run. You want to be looking and feeling as confident and strong in your position on the bike, in the water, out on the trails. But no, more often than not, we start to fall apart. We start to break down in technique, form. We start to lengthen our stride. We start to lose that cadence we started off with. Why? Well, it's because we lack that depth of strength and conditioning in our major muscle groups, in the power in our legs. And what can you be doing? Well, definitely putting the work in on the bike, on the run, like putting the volume in, putting the interval efforts in. But what else could you be doing? Well, you're making sure that you've got strong, powerful muscle groups. You have relatively good strength and conditioning across the board. We talk about having a relatively good strength to weight ratio, power to weight ratio. So pick up an injury. Don't train for 10 years because of your career or parenthood or whatever. And we become deconditioned. And so, there's huge benefits. But essentially, like, if you're seeking to go further, to go faster, to hold better position in the water, on the bike, and the run, it's not just in your endurance training. It's going to be in actually working on your mechanics, your biomechanics, and making sure that you're relatively, again, holistically strong.
Yeah. And I think like my journey with strength training, I started as a preteen, actually, strength training. That's always built that's my journey. But, it starts with just like the squats and the bicep curls, very basic. But as if you are an endurance athlete, you can really do strength training that's quite specific to your sport, and I remember when I was in college and I was a pole vaulter, I started doing step ups with weights, but doing the movement of lifting my knee drive that would help, as I was doing the pole vault. So it's like it doesn't, I think people need that foundational base, especially if they're young, like I was at the time, but you can really do strength training that is specific to your sport. So it's helping with your economy, with your movements, just as you were mentioning.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing that we do that is seemingly not that common is we screen everyone we work with, right? So me and you are working together. There's no assumptions made. I want to see you move, and we'll look at the way you move via video, etc. And you'll do a basic movement screen. Can you move into a squat? Can you stand on one leg? Can you hinge with the hip? Can you pass your arms up overhead? But then can you jump and land with confidence, left versus right? Can you potentially do a pull-up? Could you do a push-up? Could you do some single leg squats? But what we're doing is we're just building a picture of that individual. But that gives us a lot more specificity when it comes to your programming, because yes, let's get you understanding what squat looks like and lifting looks like. But quickly, what are the within the first few sessions, what are the elephants in the room that you're not working on? What are the things that maybe you've been neglecting, or the weaknesses that you've been harboring? Let's get on them as quick as possible, because actually that's where probably going to get the quickest gains. So it's one of the things we will periodically do when we're working with someone, is just checking in. And it's just, I've learned that obviously from working with people that are time poor and they want to get in, do some work, get the most out of it, get out, back onto the trail, whatever, So it's just having more efficiency of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something, your whole career has been built around this, and you've built so many connections with athletes, with professionals, with experts, with coaches throughout the years. And this year, coming up in these next few months, you are hosting the Endurance Speaker Series in the UK. And we want to definitely learn more about it. And let's just start with kind of like, what made you want to host the speaker series, get information out there? What's the drive for doing this?
Probably like a lot of people, like I'm constantly wanting to learn, absorb. Like there's so much information out there, but it's cheap in its essence now. Like you can get a lot of information, but it's how are you actually applying that new information? And going to a conference at the end of last year, the European Endurance Conference, there was some amazing research and speakers there, but it was the application. How do you then take this research, these key principles, guidelines, and actually apply it into that individual's lifestyle? The person in that room, you're a coach working with people trackside, you're down at the pool side, you're kind of out on the group rides, you've got limited resources, different training environments. It's like, how do you apply that? And it's been something that's sat with me for a long time, where it's the application that's missing a lot of the time. It's like, okay, I want to be doing more of it, but I don't know how to start doing it in my lifestyle, or if I'm a coach or I'm a health professional, how do I help this person in front of me do more of this? And that is what the key point of difference is with this, is where we're going to have the leading experts in particular on the different topics speak. But they're also the second hour, or the second part of the speaking event, is actually we're going to go into the application side of it, sit down and actually do group learning almost, where we're going to be going through some case studies and literally going, right, person A, person B, person C, different environments, how would we help them? And it just helps people understand, actually, these are the steps I could be taking, or this is the environment I can relate to. So everyone in that room is going to walk away, whatever level you're at, whatever environment you're in, whatever profession you're in, with a far more comprehensive understanding about how to apply it. And obviously you've got the experts in the room who you can Q&A with, and you can really get that. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I agree with you. The information is so accessible nowadays, but it gives people this false sense of like, I already know what I need to do. I already know the information but it's like, but you're not applying it. And I think that the application piece is the missing link in today's society. And that's where the power of coaching, what you do and what I do in my field of nutrition, but also just that opportunity to go more in depth with an expert, to go more in depth, to see case studies and have an opportunity to maybe ask questions and talk is so valuable. Even this podcast, I love hosting this podcast, yours as well. But, people are listening into somebody else's conversation and they're listening thinking, but what about this? Or what about that? Or what about for me? And when you go to an event like this, you can actually get those questions, more clear on those questions.
Yeah. I mean, because everyone's going to have those questions like, okay, but what about this scenario, this situation? Oh yeah, but I don't have that. I don't have this. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. But when you're in the presence of someone who's got a lot of experience, has worked with a lot of people, it's no, you're right. Actually, why don't we work on this, this, and this instead? Or this is actually where you could start, and this is where you'll build confidence, and this is where you'll start to see traction and build momentum. And it relates to pretty much all of these topics that we've got, where we're kind of all these speakers, and it's just, and again, we just want to give people the opportunity, and it's a virtual event and it's a live event, so we're going to have bums on seats in the room, but also it's a virtual event, and and that's kind of, we want that to be a shared experience.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that for our listeners. So this is taking place in person in the UK, actually quite different locations and different dates as well, right?
Yes.
Based on the speaker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then virtual. So can anybody across the globe access it if they wanted to?
I mean, that's again, I think we're all aware of it. It's a global community, isn't it? And no, we've already got bums on seats virtually across the whole globe, Australia and US, all over Europe. So these are just powerful topics that will relate to any endurance-based person, whether you are aware of whether you are. Yeah, these are just powerful pointed topics which we can touch on in a minute, I guess.
Yeah, let's touch on them. What's the topic lineup
I mean, in no particular order. I mean, we've got Dr. Richard Blakegrove, kind of one of the leading voices in the kind of strength and conditioning space. He's delivering key principles of strength and conditioning for endurance performance. He's a published kind of researcher, author, but he's kind of all over the kind of running scene over in the UK. But yeah, that's one of our first. We've got precision fuel and hydration. So the Andy Below, he's quite obviously PF and HR become a global company over the last decade, I think, and a lot of people are familiar with them. But we were friends right back at the beginning. A small world. We kind of come from the same town and things. So watching those guys grow, but more importantly, why a personalized hydration strategy is so important, and understanding your hydration status and whatever climate you're in, what type of person you are. Like, I was shocked immediately because I'm a heavy sweater. I think that I would be needing all of the electrolytes, and actually my wife barely sweats, but actually she's about 2.5 times more. Well, she needs 2.5 times more dosage than I would in terms of.
Wow.
But it would make sense because whenever she used to cross the finish line, she'll be clutching for ready salty crisps or salt and vinegar crisps and things. So it was kind of clear then. But yeah, warning signs for men and women around overtraining, burnout, red S, a huge kind of topic for us as a company. I mean, I'm personally as a coach, I've worked quite a lot in this space. I personally think overtraining or hypertraining is kind of one of the biggest risks to the endurance athlete, because people just naively will train high volumes on top of a very busy lifestyle and under fuel, under recover. And that's with Nicola Marsh. So she's a fantastic dietitian over here in the UK.
Yeah.
And she was recommended by Dr. Nikki Kay, who's running our Training Through the Menopause event. And Nikki Kay, published author, absolute powerhouse in endocrinology. I've worked with her, and again, understanding the complexity of navigating the menopause, from beginning to end, or, all the way through the decades for some people, but whilst also wanting to do an Ironman or an ultra marathon, or, there's a complexity there. So as a coach, individual, there's so much there. And Nikki's is towards the middle of the year we're doing with her. And then the other two, we've got mastering fueling for ultra distance performance. So Paul Booth works with some of the leading runners for the UTMB, the spine race over here in the UK that's just taken place. It's kind of running the Pennine Way, 260 miles. He helps fueling strategies for all the top runners. And the last one is with Dr. Phil Hayes, where we talk about program design, moving past just thinking about designing training programs around heart rate, power, like lactate threshold. Actually, there's a greater understanding needed, and it kind of leans back into the strength conditioning side of things, where if two people had the same lactate threshold or similar maximal heart rate, why is one still faster, stronger, can go longer? Well, it's because of a lot of the theory that fatigue resistance is one of the main topics that Phil's going to bring in. So, So there's a lot there. And obviously,
so much.
There's lots of different topics there. And I think that the point is that it's kind of almost, it's a comprehensive approach, like understanding these different elements to a training program. Yep.
It is. I, as a sports dietitian myself, love the nutrition topics that you're providing. And by the way, Nikki Kay is a 3-time guest on this podcast, Female Athlete Nutrition, which I thought I just interviewed her twice. And then I was looking it up because I knew she was a speaker at your event. And I went back to my podcast and I said, oh my gosh, I've had her on 3 times. And listen, and I email with her. Every time I talk to her, I learn something new.
I knew it so once. I didn't realize it's 3. I'd seen that you've spoken at least once. Okay, 3. Yeah, she's
3 times. And I've read one of her books. I haven't read her latest book about the menopause. So it's great that she'll be speaking about that, because I think there's so much more about, I think women, 20 years ago kind of were in sports, but maybe once they started to have families, backed off. And today's generation, women are saying, no, I'm going to keep going. And we're proving that we can do that, right? It's just kind of a shift, right? Of this is, I feel like the women going through that stage in their life right now is kind of the first generation navigating menopause and high level sport. So she should be a wealth of knowledge there.
Yeah, it's never been talked about more than it has in the last, I would say, couple of years, if I'm honest. But like the last, almost 7-8 years ago, we were working in the same clinic together, and me and my wife were trying to have children. I was working with Renee McGregor at the time as well in our clinic. And it was a real melting
Yeah.
pot for myself as a coach and as a husband, like, okay, like trying to understand why my wife, who's a high performing athlete, had been on contraception for 10 years, hadn't had a menstrual cycle, was struggling to get her cycle back. Nutritionally, she was disciplined. It's probably be the kindest word, but
Yeah.
restrictive behaviors, etc. And actually, it was a real understanding into what red S looked like and low energy availability looked
Yeah.
like, and obviously then continuing that conversation with Nikki was the prevalence of bone stress injuries and understanding hormones better and blood markers. It was, again, as I can understand, where you spoke to at least 3 times, because there's so much within these topics. Like, and
Yeah.
when you want to train for the rest of your life, but yet we're all combating the downregulation of our hormones. We're all getting older. We're all getting stiffer. Recovering takes longer. We do need to understand what we could be doing to enhance that, to prevent that downward spiral. And it's eat, sleep, strength train, understand your supplementation or like hormones, etc. It's a huge amount of empowerment that comes from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Dr. K is just so good at that. And for men and women as well, right? As the endocrinology background, she's providing such understanding of hormones and the aging process and how you can train and be stronger through it for both men and women. And I would imagine too, obviously, the other nutrition focused topics here. I love the topic focused with the dietitian, I believe. Nicola is she's going to talk about the overtraining and REDS. Is that her topic?
Yeah.
Correct.
It's with both of these topics, menopause, overtraining, there's one of the biggest focuses is obviously signs and symptoms, like training considerations, understanding what you could be thinking about when you're kind of starting out on a 16-week, 20-week triathlon program, running program, and knowing that what your hormonal status looks like. But also it's the language around it, like, being able to openly talk about where you're at, what you're struggling with. As a coach, like, I'm very open about talking about these things because I've been lucky enough, I suppose, but I've had the experience to see it firsthand over and over and over again, where you just got to talk about it from day one, because you don't know if someone is struggling with it. You don't know if they don't know. You don't know if they don't know. Yeah, they don't know if they might not know, right? And you're like, oh, just heads up, symptoms look like this, or you may feel like this. And, it is important to have a menstrual cycle, and if you're on contraception, these are the things to consider. And it's empowerment. And I think that's one of the biggest things we want from this is like language, like talk about it. If you're a coach, how do you approach it? If you're a male coach working with a group of 17 to 22-year-old women, down the track or a cycle club or whatever, or a health professional, how do you break into that conversation? And we want to help. And that's where the case studies can come in, where we want to kind of break that down. And I think there's huge value for everyone in terms of breaking down those barriers a little bit.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. And I think those case studies are really powerful. I'm working on writing a book. I keep telling people that, so I need to get it written. But one of my most important things that I want to add in the book is the case studies, because that's some of to know, like, a real life example, not just a hypothetical, not the textbook guidelines, but like the real life example of how X, Y, and Z developed, how it looked, how it felt, and kind of what the solutions were. Everybody's going to have their own individual journey, but I think it just makes it so much more relatable. And you see pieces of yourself in other people's stories, and you see enough case studies, it's like you can make that personal reflection. So I think that's so powerful. And to get it from the experts, because that's the thing, it's like, it's cool to hear one person's journey, but, I think about myself as a dietitian. I'm like, well, I know, 500 people's stories, thousands of people's stories. So these experts that you have at your speaker, they have so many different case studies that they pull back from their career of working with people, of how this can play out in different scenarios.
I think that's why I'm not up there speaking, because it's like, that's why you want to facilitate this, because I think I said to you before we started today, was you want to champion the importance of these different elements within a training program. If you're someone, because each of these topics can have significant positive benefits or consequences if you don't respect them enough. And some people are very innocently just training hard. And as I think you said in my introduction, like training hard is the easy bit, unfortunately. Like actually the hard bit is listening to your body, understanding the process of your body, the different stages of your life, managing your stress, your hormones, your nutrition. All of this is, the more you understand it, the more consistent you'll probably find that your training is, the better your results are going to be. But there's a complexity. And if you can get those experts up there, giving you the solid information, they potentially talking about the current research, the guidelines, some of the methods, but actually all of them are working with people on a daily basis. They're not just head in a book, however you want to define it. They're not just academics. They are actually out there working with people from young and old. And again, like anecdotal, like case study practice, like you've got that, and they can bring it. That's why it's so important to champion these types of people, because they will do such a great job of it, and they already are doing such a great job of it. So.
And kind of something you alluded to before there, we have knowledge so easily accessible on the internet, social media, people's blogs, but, really championing the people that have professional training and education, and then the firsthand working experience of so many years. Like that's really so different. You come across somebody's Instagram page or their blog and don't realize that, they call themselves a coach and they get 2 clients a year, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm proud, if they're helping people, that's wonderful, but it's very different than the people that you have at your speaker series, I think, of just so much experience. These are really
you must find it. People are complex. And I think in this day and age, there's almost an oversimplification, like with everything that's coming through now in terms of technology. It's like, although there's more data than ever, there's still an oversimplification of like, if I just this algorithm, this kind of thing. And it's like, but do you actually understand the person that you're working with? There's layers to this person that you're working with. And if you want that person, or if you want to, you personally yourself, do an ultra marathon, you want to take part in even in a 5K or a half marathon, whatever it is, or an Olympic triathlon. Okay, like train, but understand there's a bit of more complexity to it. Like you may need to understand like where your physiology is right now and where it might be in 2 years time, or you know what I mean? And this is a thing, like everyone should have access to this kind of knowledge, because it just empowers people to make less mistakes, and it naively or innocently, right? Like you just need to eat a bit more. Why? Because your training's increasing, or your hormones, like knowing what your kind of your current blood markers are, your blood health, hormone health is. Okay, I didn't know that. I need to pick up my iron levels in my nutrition or in my supplementation, whatever it needs to be. But most people want to make those better decisions, but if they don't know what they are or what they could be doing, they're just going to carry on innocently. And again, education is power, then the application piece is where you can really help people start doing it,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think with the nutrition specifically, which I'll speak to as a dietitian, athletes, they're mostly willing to do what it takes to be stronger, reduce injury, go, compete in their sport at the higher level. But it's that misinformation or the lack of, I just didn't know. And I think there's a good shift, but it's confusing because you have all these general health guidelines and you have, nutrition to prevent chronic disease, and which are both important. We need general health. We want to prevent chronic disease. I'm not saying those are not important. Those are important. But sometimes, though, that information gets confusing when you apply it to sport, speaking of like carbohydrate or sugar amounts and things like that, right? And so sometimes having this very sport-specific information is so helpful, because so many people go down the wrong path with nutrition because they're not applying it specific to their sport needs.
Yeah. I mean, they just don't, a lot of people just innocently don't realize like what their output is, like you're a mum, I've got someone who's a mum of 5 right now. She's a director of a company. she's signed up for a 30, a 40 and a 50 miler, I think, this year. She's targeting 100 next year. Like there's output, right? Without even giving
Yeah.
a training program, there's an output there. You're
Yeah.
like, she's 40, I think 42 years old. It's like, okay, that is a complex person. No, you don't have to say it to that person, but you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Straight away, you're thinking, right, there's a huge output here, mentally, physically, hormonally, like where we at, what we're working with. And then you start thinking, okay, nutritionally, strength and conditioning based, what's her previous training experience, injury history. As soon as you start looking at that, you're like, okay, like now but that's just logic, I like to think, because if we can, these are the themes of what we want to talk about these speaker events, because it's like these are the pieces of the puzzle, and it's just understanding that these pieces, if you just look at these areas of your own training and go, okay, could I do 1%, 2% better? It will shift. It will shift all those behaviors into the positive. And yeah, it will come through understanding more, but then also applying more. And so it's as you say, a lot of people want to will easily, happily make those changes. It's just a lot of the time they don't realize they need to or could do. And as you say, with the nutrition pace, it's, what does that need to do? What's that little behavior? There's little tweaks that you could be making. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you cracked me up with your example about the mom, because I'm a mom to little ones right now, and I'm struggling to get structured workouts in, but I have to keep reminding myself, well, the 35-pound toddler climbed on my legs and I did about 15 leg raises with him yesterday,
Yeah.
It's like, but then I got to think to myself, ooh, brace my core, make sure I don't hurt myself while I'm doing this. There's so much. And then I'm carrying both of them up and down the stairs. I'm like, this is 60 pounds that I just carried up the stairs. How many times throughout the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's human beings are complex, and we can't just look at the training plan. We can't just look at what did you eat. You have to look at, their whole life and really treat them as a human being, not just person X following a training plan.
I just said, like, this is bandwidth, like how much has this person got to give? That again, that's just another thing, right? Like what you just described there is how much do you honestly have to give? Like, okay, right. And it's working that out. And when you're giving someone a training program, how much training can they tolerate? That's not just based off how many hours of a week they've got. It's actually, okay, well, can it actually tolerate this on top of being a mum, a working professional, responsible for however many family members and friends, or whatever their situation is? It's like stress. Those extra stresses, and it's all part of the conversation, and that's if your hormonal health is in a good place. And nutrition, with you, nutrition is in a good place. You just sleep in a good place. Like there's so many of these little factors that will wear and tear. They'll place more wear and tear on someone until they, and obviously from my point of view as a coach, it's the ramifications of this, overtraining, hypertraining, whatever you want to call it, but over stress injuries, long-term tendinopathies, like chronic fatigue, like people, just sickness in general, like it's or demotivation, loss of passion for the sport that you used to love. Like a lot of it comes from accumulation, like compounding issues, So again, you can see there's all of these topics mean something, are significant, in terms of helping someone with their training or their health in general.
Yeah. So again, the speaker series sounds like helpful for a variety of people. Like you could get benefit out of it being a coach yourself to, again, learn from the true experts and get those case examples, but also just as an athlete, you can go and learn more. Anybody else do you think this would be useful for?
Well, the important thing is actually everyone walks away with a toolkit. So it's almost like a module based event. So depending on the event you're attending, we've got people who are attending all of them. Virtually they're attending all 6 of them. We've got a couple of people who are attending all 6, and they're moving around the country with us, not actually with us, but they're going to be at the event.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is it's almost like a collective module based, where at the end of every event or working through the event, there's a toolkit that's being provided. So these case studies you'll be able to walk away with, all the notes that you'll be gathering throughout the talk. So it's an education series. So that's the educator in me, but there's so much that the speakers are going to be delivering. What we're doing is we're distilling some of that down so that the audience, the attendees, can actually take that away with them as well as
Mhm.
the group work or the personal work they're going to be doing with themselves. So that's certainly what they can expect from every one of the events, virtually
That's
and face to face.
great. And can you sign up? Do you sign up for all of them, or can you sign up for just the ones that you might be interested in?
Absolutely, it's both. Yeah, you can either
Both. Okay.
individual. We got this is the thing we did it individually because we knew that some of these topics are going to be more important to other people at different times in their training and more powerful at different
Right.
times. And obviously, and
Yeah.
also obviously you can do all of them at once. You can sign up for them all at once as well. So yeah, both options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Kriss, thank you so much for this conversation today, but also just like putting more education and knowledge and creating the series for people, because I think this is just so amazing that athletes have these resources, coaches have these resources now to get more experts, elevate them, like you said before. I think it's wonderful. So anything else you want to share about the event before we wrap up? Just want to make sure you got out what you want to. I know this is a big deal. So
no. I think it's just, I think when you look at the series, you'll notice that there's just these different topics and these different speakers, and they really are going to be bringing some of the most current, up to date information, research, but also what it looked like on the ground. The fueling for ultra distance performance with Paul Booth. Like he's done over 100 ultras himself. He has crewed for countless individuals over the years. So understanding how to train your gut, actually out there, on the trails, in the mountains. It's just, that's, I think, the most powerful thing about these speakers. It's not just information. It's going to be the actual application piece, which is obviously what I've been talking about today. So yeah.
Which I know they're all important, but which one are you most excited for?
Overtraining. It's something that I feel is one of the most I don't want to say underappreciated. People don't realize how much overtraining is going. It's rife within the endurance community because there's so much passion. Everyone's got such a romantic relationship with their running, their riding, their swimming, their active lifestyle in general, that they fill their days, their weeks, their years with events and training. And understanding as you're getting older, as you're progressing through life, navigating injuries, different chapters of your life, it's not fair that body is struggling to tolerate all this lifestyle, and the signs and symptoms that are really quite clear, disordered eating patterns, like hormonal fluctuations, psychological kind of struggles, and yet alone ups and downs of training. So for me, witnessing it on a daily basis with people who innocently fall into these patterns, and it's like, oh no, you're good. You just need to work on your nutrition a bit more, or work on your S&C a bit more, or whatever. So that, for me, absolutely, Red S is is close to my heart because of my wife, and overtraining is rife, I believe. Yeah. And the more we can help people with that, the better, I think.
There's a lot of overlap between the two as well regarding the symptoms and kind of the root cause as well. Like I kind of, RED-S, my specialty here as a dietitian is energy deficiency. So you think the root problem should be the lack of nutrition, but sometimes it once again is the root problem. Maybe, I love how you said their romantic relationship with training. So it might not be that they intended to underfuel, but they're training so much that there's that mismatch in energy. Or again, that they really thought that they were doing the right thing nutrition-wise by being regimented and disciplined with their diet, and it just wasn't, right? And so and then the symptoms of RED-S and overtraining, I actually had I do try and, like, being the dietitian, I'm working on that, because overtraining doesn't have to be a nutrition problem, right? It can be mixed in, but it's not. It's overtraining. It's, it's different. But I did have a client last year that came to me, and in the end of working together, we both decided, like, yeah, this really was overtraining, but I was able to support her with the nutrition piece, and because all her hormones and her blood biomarkers, it was very confusing. Is this overtraining? Is this RED-S? And we kind of navigated that. So I think just these two topics are different and yet so much overlap.
Absolutely, they're intertwined for sure. Yeah.
Intertwined, yeah, very intertwined. So
there's just so many variables. Like you talk to someone like Nikki, or you get to see, bone stress injuries, but they're kind of people becoming osteopenic, osteoporotic at early young ages because they haven't fueled, they haven't been, they've been struggling with their menstrual cycle. Middle aged, they've had a hysterectomy, they've gone into early menopause, perimenopause. Like there is complexity there that people can innocently just fall into. And it's like, it's not fair, but actually if you can help people understand this kind of timeline to a certain degree, and then obviously depending on who you are, where you might fall into, but then what you can do about it, like what actions can you start to just straight off the bat implement day one? Like, let's go, like, let's flip the narrative immediately. If you are symptomatic, okay, what can you be doing day one, straight off the bat, to help improve those symptoms straight away? And it's as I said, it's not just nutrition based. It's kind of, there's a psychology to it. There's a behavior. There's behaviors to it, isn't there? There's like a background. There's a psychological kind of trauma that some people have gone through that have kind of led them to these types of behaviors. So there's a complexity there. That, again, this is why I've got no interest in ever thinking I'll ever be an expert in any of these things. Like, but the professional network that I've been lucky enough to work with over the years or be aware of, like, let's hear more from them, because things are moving all the time. There's more coming to the forefront all the time. And, the more you can understand that, the more you can then bring it back into your own training and prevent any of these, these issues arising in your own life. So, yes.
Yeah. Wonderful, Kriss. Well, I've got some fun rapid fire questions for you before we end this. You ready? If there's one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life and never be sick of it, what would it be?
Oh, no. Eggs.
Very expensive over here in the US these days.
Yeah.
I don't know how the prices are in the UK, but
I've flicked through 3-4 different things, but eggs, like me and my boys eat eggs. I'm going to say eggs in different ways. You can do a lot with them, can't they? They're a binding, they're amazing things. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Wow. I'm going to have to think on that one, because I actually have shifted. And over the past few years, I eat eggs for breakfast nearly every day.
It's just
so I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's just a building block. You can do anything with it. Like snacks and banana pancakes. You ever done banana pancakes?
Yeah.
Much of banana. I've made several thousand of my 2-year-old boy and my 5-year-old boy. I reckon me and my wife have made thousands of those things over the years. I just sat there and just,
whipping up those eggs. Amazing. Yeah. Kriss, what is your favorite sport to participate in yourself?
Inline hockey, skating. I grew up, for whatever reason, I played every sport growing up: martial arts, rugby, football, basketball, and I got a pair of inline skates a long time ago, and a hockey stick, and playing down the playground, and that was it. Found a sport that I could be fast, somewhat aggressive with, and I just got lucky. Me and my brother played internationally. I got to travel Canada and America and Europe with it, but I've always, obviously, because my wife, Polly, we've always run, rode, and swam and things. But my heart with, give me a hockey stick and a pair of skates, I'll be out on the ice or out on the rink if I can. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't do my background research then. I had no clue about that for you. I had no clue the hockey background.
I severely broke myself twice. And that's my passion around injury rehabilitation as well, is because I went through 2 very dark episodes of my young adult life where I broke my knee twice. And that's very much fueled the injury rehabilitation side of what we do as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay. And what about as a spectator? What's your favorite sport to watch and cheer on?
Oh my goodness. And I highlight reel. I watch a lot of highlights. I love a lot of different sports. Basketball, I enjoy. I love watching the NHL. Hockey. I love watching some of the trail races. I really enjoy just kind of dot watching, and if I can, some of the UTMB races, Western stuff. Yeah, I'm a bit of a very eclectic. I watch all of it. Like, I love it.
Seems it. Yeah.
I caught myself watching darts. I don't know if you Americans know what darts recently, and it's just a big fan of all of it. I love it. Weightlifting, Olympic. Yeah, I just love all of it, I think. Yeah.
Everything. Yep. Love it. True sports fan through and through. All right. And final question, since this is the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast, if there's a female athlete out there, well-known or in your personal life, that you want to give a shout out to for being an inspiration, who would that be and why?
Always my wife.
I know. I know.
Do you know what? It has to be, because Strength for Endurance wouldn't have existed, I don't think, without meeting her. And we've always said that, because witnessing what it takes to try and be at the top of the level, be at that top of, the elite level and compete in 70.3 or triathlon, like it takes everything. But to watch a young woman like that put that much dedication in, to see it every day as a partner at the time, and now a husband. Yeah, no, I mean, and then obviously the community we had were based around that, the clubs that she used to, and the athletes she used to be around. Yeah, no, my wife, not to sound too whatever that sounds, but
it's beautiful. Yeah. And it's her athletic journey, but it's also then how it's impacted your career and helping other people too through her journey, which is quite amazing. So shout out to her, and thank you, Kriss. And we will include in the show notes the link for the Endurance Speaker Series. We'll include the link in the show notes for people to sign up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsey. Lovely being here.
Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, I would truly appreciate if you could share this episode with a friend, give us a 5-star rating, or even leave a comment and a review. It really helps boost engagement and searchability and get episodes like this into the ears of people who will benefit from improving their nutrition and getting help. If you yourself are looking for more resources and help, you can head to riseupnutritionrun.com to learn about all my services and offerings. You can also find more resources at femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com, where we have all the resources surrounding this podcast. Both of those links are included in the show notes. There, you will also find ways to support this podcast. You can support the podcast with a financial contribution, link in the show notes and on the websites. And you can find ways to get in touch with me. If you are looking for help with your personal nutrition, you can head to my website and get in contact with me, and we can talk about applying for nutrition coaching help. Perhaps you are looking to be a guest on the podcast. You can head to femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com and submit a form to be a guest on this show or recommend somebody else. I also have discount codes and links to different products and companies and resources and free downloadable handouts within the websites that are always evolving and being updated. So please check them out. Many of these companies and products I do occasionally talk about on the show, but they're listed on the websites as their forever home that you can easily access when you're looking for help. Thank you so much for being a fan. Please reach out if you need help, and I'll see you in the next episode.